A house divided cannot stand. And history will be kind to me, for I intend to write that history. Who said those quotes? I'll be right back with the answer. I'm Randall Terry. This is Voice of Resistance.
Those who forsake the law praise the wicked. Those who uphold the law resist them. Welcome to the Voice of Resistance. Here's your host, Randall Terry.
All right, here's the answer to the pop quiz. Answer number one, a house divided against itself cannot stand, was said by? No, not Abraham Lincoln. Jesus. It's recorded in the Gospel of Mark, chapter 3, verse 24, where he was talking to the Pharisees, and he said, look, because they said it's by Satan that he's casting out demons. He said, how can Satan cast out Satan and still prevail? Anyway, the Sanhedrin must have been made of the same stuff that most of our Democrats and Republicans are made of today. But I digress. And the second quote, history will be kind to me, for I intend to write that history. You know it. Winston Churchill. And he wrote the history, the best-selling history by far of World War II. After he was out of office, he wasn't prime minister any longer. He wrote the 6-volume set on World War II, and it actually did treat him quite kindly. The truth of the matter is, I want to weave these two thoughts together today because there's things in the news, such as the U.S. sending 450 troops to Iraq. The polling data showing the people that love Obama and the people that don't love Obama. People that are going to vote for Hillary no matter what. Even though they don't trust her, they say she's got great leadership skills. And the fact that Jeb Bush is set to raise by the end of this summer, probably by the end of June, as much money as every other candidate combined. And let the full weight of that sink in on you. Jeb Bush and his PACs, things associated with him, will have raised by the end of June as much money as every other Republican combined. All right, I've set the table. There's several items on it. Let's talk. Sending 450 men to Iraq is like a spit in the wind, okay? If we were sending 450 trained assassins, people with rifles that can shoot multiple miles if need be, or at least a mile or half a mile or a mile and a half, if we were sending people like that, like the movie American Sniper, to kill ISIS leaders, then I would say those 450 men will prove a great asset. Or if it was 450 men that could be involved with guided bombs. But they're not. Okay, these are men going to train the Iraqi soldiers. Now, I'm going to explain something to you that no one in the media has figured out, all right? And it's the words of Muhammad. The reason that Iraqi soldiers have not defeated ISIS is because of the words of Muhammad. Muhammad said, do not become a friend to Christians and Jews. He ordered it of his followers. He said, whoever becomes a friend to one of them is one of them, and God will not guide an unjust people. In other words, they have betrayed their own community. They betrayed the Muslim Ummah. One of the reasons that Abu Bakr, the leader of ISIS, called for the burning of the Jordanian pilot, even though the Jordanian pilot was a Muslim, was because the Jordanian pilot was helping the Christians and the Jews, the Crusaders, the Westerners, us. And Muhammad said, if someone betrays their people and betrays God, if someone abandons their religion by helping the pagans, even then, this could be, or is grounds, according to a jurist out of Pakistan I've read, it's cause for the death sentence. It's a capital crime against Islam. So what the Iraqis have is their haunting conscience. Don't you remember how many millions of dollars we spent training the Iraqis before we left? but people haven't grasped the significance of their religion and their ideology. That's what this is about, people. Picture France and Spain getting into a quarrel, both allegedly Catholic nations, or Spain and Italy getting into a quarrel, a political quarrel. And then the leaders of those two countries, both predominantly Catholic, said, we're going to go to war and we're ordering you to kill your fellow Catholics. Now you got priests and bishops in both countries swapping out seminarians. Do you really think that with gusto they're going to pick up arms to kill their fellow Catholics? It's just not going to happen. I'll be right back to continue this, and we'll pick up with the divisions in our country.
You have two choices. I mean, you can try to raise your children by design, or you will raise them by default. There are no perfect parents. We're going to get it wrong sometimes. If we have a plan, we've got a better chance of getting it right in the long run.
There is something deep within the heart of every human being that longs for parental acceptance and approval. When does a boy become a man?
Get a group of guys around and ask them that question.
I don't think there's a certain age. Some men stay boys their whole life.
I would say, 16, 18 years old.
Wow, that's a good question.
When they get bar mitzvah.
Well, I think when he has a child. So I just became at 56, 56 years old.
Without the power of the Holy Spirit changing us and giving us power over our sin, we can't hope to be the dads that our kids need us to be.
Muhammad said, whoever befriends them is one of them. Okay? In other words, a false Muslim. There are a lot of places in the canonical literature regarding Muhammad's life and the early community of Islam that talk about the hypocrites, or the false Muslims, or the Muslims that said one thing with their mouth but then did another thing, or doubted in their heart, or were playing both sides. And Muhammad had nothing but contempt for them. Nothing but contempt. And said that if you befriend them, you're one of them. In other words, you're a false Muslim. So it's okay for Abu Bakr and his buddies in ISIS to kill the Iraqi soldiers. And the Iraqi soldiers are thinking, now wait, Abu Bakr wants to rid our land of foreign infidels. We'd like that too. Abu Bakr wants to reestablish the caliphate, the caliph, the successor of Muhammad. We'd like that too. Abu Bakr wants to establish Sharia law. We want that too. Abu Bakr wants us to be able to treat our women and our girls the way Sharia law says we should, or should be able to. We want that too. So why am I fighting them again? Here's another point to prove that, or another illustration to prove what I'm talking about. Who has been able to go and to kill ISIS combatants without qualm, with great speed, with dispatch? Iranian militia. Iranian militia are a greater threat to ISIS than the Iraqi soldiers. Why? Well, because the Iranian militia are true believers in Shiite Islam, not Sunni Islam. ISIS is made up of Sunnis. The Sunnis believe that the Shiites are false Muslims and deserve to die. The Shiites believe that Sunnis are false Muslims and need to die, need to be killed. So the Shiite militia are all too happy to come and to kill members of ISIS because they get to spread the influence of Iran, and they get to do God a favor by killing false Muslims who are fighting with and for ISIS. This is Islam 101. And either the White House and the Pentagon and their top advisors are so foolish that they have not studied this, or they're so foolish that they've studied it and they think that they can circumvent it or ignore it. They actually believe that they can avoid the impact of hundreds of years of social conscience, that they can avoid the impact of the end of World War I and the carving up of the Ottoman Empire, the one Ummah, the people of Islam that had a caliph and had one people. They think they can just ignore that and tell the Iraqi soldiers, here's how you use these weapons, now go kill ISIS. It's not going to happen. And now we learn that ISIS has acquired the material for a dirty bomb. And by the way, you know who released that intelligence? It wasn't the US. It wasn't the Brits. It was the Aussies. It was the Australian intelligence community that released the data. Our country knew it. We didn't release it. Part of that is because we went into Iran, or Iraq rather, once in search of weapons of mass destruction. And now you're telling us that they actually do have the material? As I said the other day, what we don't know if they have is scientists to put it together, okay? And we know that they don't have a delivery system. Now, the Indian intelligence is saying, be careful, the Pakistanis might slip one small nuclear weapon to ISIS for them to use, or they might send some Pakistani scientists to help. We don't know, but we know that we have a problem. And we know that right now our government does not have any intention. They don't have, as Obama has said, and the right-wing radio has been mocking him, Obama has said, we don't have a strategy. So we're sending 450 men over there to train our the soldiers that we're supporting, but we don't have a strategy. And then you've got foolish people, I almost called him an idiot, like John McCain, who armed ISIS. You understand that ISIS is fighting Iraqi soldiers and killing innocent civilians with weapons given by the United States of America? A house divided cannot stand. My wife and I, for 5 years, have been grinding our own wheat and baking our own bread from scratch. Within 2 hours, you can have fresh wheat in your hand and then piping hot bread come out of the oven. The most nutritious and delicious bread you will ever have. And we do it for under $1 a loaf. Call Paula's Bread and find out about this grain mill and the mixer and how it can save you money and change your life. I have been a leader in the pro-life movement for 30 years. And sadly, we have not prevailed in our goal to make it a criminal act to kill an unborn baby. There's reasons why we have failed. I wrote this book, A Humble Plea, to Catholic bishops, to evangelical clergy, and to lay people, explaining where we went wrong and what we have to do to prevail. We've made this available as a PDF online for free. I encourage you to go and download your own copy. We are a nation divided. Now, obviously, we're divided over whether or not we should send in ground troops to wipe out and to just obliterate ISIS. We have the power to do it. You understand that, right? We have the power to go in and kill them all, to not take any prisoners, just kill them. We have the power to do it. There would be a lot of destroyed property. There would be a lot of lost life, a lot of lost civilian life. And this is what keeps us from doing it. And perhaps the lack of the will of the American people. But here's a scenario that you need to, I'm going to prophesy right now, okay? I hope it doesn't come true, but I'm going to prophesy. If ISIS or any other Islamic jihadist group detonates a dirty nuke weapon or has some other weapon of mass destruction that causes a lot of loss of life in America or England, particularly, and maybe any other Western nation, then you will see the will of the American people say, we're going to go kill them all. Okay? We're going to kill them all. And that's what people will be saying. They'll be saying on the airwaves, they'll be saying, kill them all. And then the policy decision will have to be made. Do we disarm Pakistan's nuclear arsenal? Do we take away Pakistan's nuclear arsenal? That's going to be the debate, people. I'm telling you right now. all right? It'll be do not let Iran have a nuclear weapon and take away the nuclear capability of Pakistan. In other words, the debate is going to be one day, if a dirty nuke goes off, the debate will be whether or not it should be U.S. military policy to not allow ever again in the history of the human race a Muslim nation to own a nuclear bomb. Okay? Because what's going to happen is, if it goes down this way, is that an ideology, people will begin to discover and search out the ideology of both Shiite Islam and Sunni Islam and realize, oh my goodness, they really do want to take over the world for the glory of Allah. And if they have the weaponry to do it, well, good grief. They started off as a little cluster of 100 people in Mecca, and now they control huge swaths of land all over the world. Now they're persecuting tens of thousands of Christians. All right, let's go to other areas of division. We are divided by party, that's clear. But it's a little bit worse than that. We're divided by the elite and us, the plebeians. Every time there was an effort to lax immigration, have some type of amnesty, something. There were 3 times in the last 10 or 15 years where there was a legislation being proposed. And the American people went crazy, and every single time they backed off. People were defeated in elections. It became a bitter fight legislatively. And each time you had Republicans that were helping with the agenda, like John McCain. There's John McCain's name again. God save us from the likes of him. Heaven save us, please save us, God, from bad leaders. Anyway, there's an old saying, people get the leaders they deserve. And I cringe when I hear that, because I think, you know what? We've got Obama, we've got leaders like John McCain supposedly fighting for what we believe in, and he's not. And then I think, Lord, how bad have we become? Lord Jesus, have mercy on us. Lord, have mercy on our souls. So back to immigration. So what happens? Obama signs an executive decision or a memo or whatever it is, executive order, and basically, unilaterally, contrary to the law, contrary to the Constitution, tries to give 10 or 12 million illegal immigrants amnesty. Okay? What do the Republicans do? They say this is outside of his powers. They say this is against the law. They say this is unconstitutional. And what do? Nothing. Now, why do you think that is? Because of the elite, the moneyed class. The moneyed class in the Republican machine and the Democrat machine both want immigration reform. They want to give all these people legal status because they need the cheap labor. So I can see Mitch McConnell chuckling in a back room. I don't know if they still allow cigars in some of those back rooms, but they're chuckling. They're saying, well, we wanted it. Obama did it. He can take the political heat. We'll say that we don't want to cause a disruption by trying to impeach him. We've got amnesty, which we wanted. The fault is Obama's. Let's move on, men. What else can we get away with? When I was a prisoner in a prison work camp in Alpharetta, Georgia, I had a lot of time on my hands to research who the bad guys were in the death of our culture. And I wrote Accessory to Murder. It is an overview of our political, cultural, media, and religious adversaries that are accomplices to the death of our culture. I encourage you, get a copy of this and learn the who's who of the bad guys. One of the greatest joys and passions that I have had for almost my entire life is music. And one of the best times that I had was putting together some albums in Nashville of songs that I wrote. One of the albums is called Dark Sunglasses Day. This is a country album, a lot of love songs and patriotic music. We've made it available to you online, and I hope that you'll Go take a listen. You might be pleasantly surprised. You might even find yourself singing along. History will be kind to me, for I intend to write that history. The words of Winston Churchill. The truth of the matter is, usually, winners write history. For example, I have been amazed, and so have other people my age and a little bit older, at how most young people today have never heard of Operation Rescue. They literally don't know about the largest civil disobedience movement in American history. Let the full weight of that sink in on you. Under Dr. King's leadership in the civil rights movement in the 1960s, from 58 until 68, 10-year span, there was about 7,000 arrests for peaceful civil disobedience. From 1987, late 87 to 1994, a 7-year window, there were over 75,000 arrests, documented arrests for peaceful civil disobedience all over the country. It's unprecedented in American history. And it's not in most history books. Why? Winners write history. And we lost. Victory would have meant that we made it illegal to murder a baby in the womb, make child killing illegal. That was our goal. It is still our goal. But we didn't achieve the goal yet. So we don't get to write the history. Imagine if we had. Imagine if in the mid-90s, instead of Clinton being elected and appointing Janet Reno and passing the FACE Act and all these different things, imagine if the civil disobedience movement had swelled larger and larger and had just ground the abortion industry, the murdering of babies, to a halt. Passed a law, federal law, making it a crime to kill babies. The country would look very different today, very different. But that's not the way it happened. And so now we're in a position where we might be getting Hillary Clinton. Now we're in a position where we have Barack Obama as our president. And he's very anxious to have a great legacy. He's anxious to have a great history written about him. And it's the winners who write history. Now, fortunately, in our country, you can have dissent. That's also under attack right now. Just ask the people who dared to stand up against the militant homosexuals. But anyway, we can have dissent. So there can be histories written that show that Bill Clinton was a villain, that Hillary Clinton is a villain, that Barack Obama is a despicable president. But there are so many people right now that are asleep. And when you've got somebody like Jeb Bush, who will raise by the end of June $100 million, potentially more than all of his opponents combined, then you're looking at the creating of a winner. You raise that kind of money to crush your opposition, to put people on the ground to work, phone banks, all these things that are involved in political process, but also to crush your opposition, to do opposition research, to go behind closed doors and say, look, this is what we've got on you. You need to get out of the race or we're going to let this out. It's a dirty, ugly process now. It didn't used to be so bad. It's bad now. So now we're in a position where the winners, like Jeb Bush, if he wins the nomination, just by virtue of the money, okay, just by virtue of the money, there's a sense of inevitability that's emerging. Well, we're a divided nation. We're divided on ethics, with those who support the life of babies and marriage, those who want to murder babies and have perversion called marriage. We're divided with money, the rich elite who are funding Jeb Bush. We're divided on how we should deal with Islam. And a house divided cannot stand. So when the history is written, when this nation, if it keeps on going, when it comes unraveled to greater and greater degrees, I'm not even sure what it'll look like. But who will the winners be that are writing the history? Will someone have the wisdom to say, these bad things came upon us because we forgot the Lord our God, because we turned against him, because we have the blood of babies staining our hands and crying out from the ground, and the judgments of the Lord are true and righteous altogether. I don't know who's going to write the history, but I intend to raise up my voice to be a light, and I encourage you to do the same.
you.